You're listening to Virtue of the West with me, Tara McCarthy, and my co-host, Brittany Pettibone.
Today we're talking with Black Pigeon Speaks. Black Pigeon Speaks, he has a YouTube channel which shares alternative views on politics, society, and culture. Thank you so much for joining us, Black Pigeon.
Why, it's a pleasure, ladies. Thank you for having me.
One of your most controversial videos is called Why Women Destroy Nations. What motivated you to create that video?
What motivated me to create that video? That's a good question. I guess it's probably from the years of just examining the fairer sex, and we're watching the way most women in my life and in general, I guess, have behaved. I guess what really motivated me was watching the migrant crisis of 2015 and seeing the train stations that were being overrun by ladies in Europe with placards reading "Refugees welcome, we love you," and actually clapping and squealing, and they looked like, that they were sort of entranced like teenage girls to a boy band. It was just mind-numbing watching, because the inevitable conclusions and the inevitable outcomes of hordes of men coming in from the Middle East, because I have lived in the Middle East and I know a little bit about the sexualized culture of the Middle East, or lack thereof. I knew exactly what was going to happen. It only took a couple of months, and you had Cologne. I mean, obviously you had probably random incidences here and there. And just watching that, and just how women are basically, unfortunately, they behave in a different way than men do. And to say that we are evolved equally and we are of equal faculty and of equal instinct is absolutely not true. So I guess it was just a combination of watching the way women were behaving during the crisis, which is what motivated me to make it, because I was just stupefied by these things. And then the other thing would be, just because the fact that women are able and capable of doing this is a very clear visual reminder of how having women been enfranchised, women being given the vote, has completely moved our societies over to the left. If there was a center previous to women being enfranchised, that center now has moved inextricably to the left. So, and another thing, as much as women don't want to admit it, women are a resource. Women. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but
well, the same could be said about men, really. But okay.
Yeah, but I can't think any time women fighting over, battles over men. I mean, think about the founding of the city of Rome. It's based on the rape of the Sabine women, and stealing all their women. I mean, throughout history, women are the ones. A fertile woman is a valuable commodity. Without women, you don't have babies. You don't have
I think it's fair to say that men guard women as though they are a resource. I can agree with you on that one.
Yes. I know. I mean, I don't want to get too much into that, to be honest. But yeah, it's generally the continuity between generations that is created by women, and honestly, I don't think women are generally capable of making sound political decisions, and the migrant crisis was probably the reason that came up. That video, just watching it.
And when that video came out, I actually responded to it, and I said, well, there's only, for me, when I look at the statistics, I'm only seeing like a 5% difference in the number of women voting left than right, so that, I still wonder about this one, I'm open-minded to this concept that maybe women shouldn't vote because they.
But you're talking about countries where 5%, where somewhere like the UK or Canada or Germany. But the Conservative Party in any normal society, I mean, conservative parties in countries like the UK and Canada are not conservative. Therefore, all the things that the left are, it's just a little less. That's all.
So it's like
the welfare state. Therefore,
the only catering to women kind of thing, which is making them.
Yeah, they're all catering to women. So I mean, if you do it by voting, I mean that's ridiculous because there is no conservative parties in the Western world. They
Fair
don't
enough.
exist.
There are a lot of political YouTube channels on YouTube, and I notice if you examine the statistics of who watches what, it's vastly dominated by men, like 95% men, 5% women or something. Wouldn't you say that it's more like, I know that women are far more empathetic and emotional, so a lot of times that can make them vote one way or another. But from what I've examined, women are just not very well educated on politics, and that's why they vote the way they do, because they just vote according to emotion as opposed to actually understanding what's going on and then voting logically or, pragmatically. So that's what I've observed. Would you agree there, or do you just not believe that women?
I would agree. I would agree on one point. Women do vote emotionally, but I think once a woman has children, they generally will start to work. They'll generally start waking up politically, maybe talking to their husband a little more, looking at political platforms and how that could affect them as a family. So I would say
Mhm.
women generally would vote differently, whether they're single, young, or if they're a family, if they've got children. So yeah, I would agree with that. I think younger women, they they're basically retarded and shouldn't be given the vote. I don't think women who have no children or and are under 30 should be allowed to vote. Even if they pay taxes, I don't think they should. I'm sorry.
Interesting.
It's just, I mean, it's a radical proposition. I mean, I honestly don't think that democracy, I don't think that people who pay no taxes and receive benefits should be allowed to vote. I think that this kind of democracy, I mean, even if you go back to the founding of the United States, they talked about, if you enfranchise everybody, people will end up voting the treasury to themselves, right? So
Yeah.
you have, for example, the 47% in the election cycle with Mitt Romney, and he said, how can you win in a country as a Republican when 47% of people are on some form of welfare? And that number is already over 50% with Barack Obama. So, I mean, these people who absolutely do not contribute to their society, they are net receivers of taxes. They should not have a right to vote either. I mean, I'm not saying that it's just women. I mean, you can't have a society where people just vote other people's money to themselves. I think Margaret Thatcher said something along those lines.
Yeah.
Something interesting you said, I'd like you to expound on, if you don't mind. You said that when women are given the same, rights as men, like to vote, etc., the society moves more towards the left. Why do you think that is, in your opinion?
Because women have always been more. They've always needed the protection of the group more than men have needed. For example, if you ever look at when women and men divorce, I mean, not anymore with divorce laws, but if you looked at, say, for example, prior to the revamping of divorce laws after the civil rights in the 60s and the 70s, if a woman was divorced, it was a scandal because she would most generally end up in absolute poverty. She needed a man and a husband to protect her, and this is why you didn't have such things as massive, women riding the cock carousel, for lack of a better adjective. I mean, you had women being very careful with whom they would have sex with because they would have to be very certain that man would be a man that would stay around to provide for her and her children. And and I think it's just instinctual in our species that women, for example, if you can look like anybody, you can look like Jabba the Hutt, but if you're a billionaire, you'll have beautiful women surrounding you. Strength comes from intelligence. It comes from resources. So women, given the choice, look for other means to protect themselves if things go wrong, and the way to do that is through government and voting for policies that shift the government and the society to the left, ones that give more handouts to women. For example, if you look at what's happened with the Black community in the United States, I mean, they've been destroyed by welfare handouts and the Great Society built by Lyndon Johnson. I mean, they've been absolutely destroyed. They've gone from maybe 10 to 15% illegitimate rates for their children to, I don't know, over 70, maybe 80%. So I think with the reason women do this is they're looking for protection for themselves and their potential offspring, in case something would happen. If you look at all the laws, all of these kinds of shifts toward the left, social handouts and social security and the creations of all of these kinds of programs, they're generally always led by women or voted for by women.
Fair enough. I mean, I
Interesting.
suppose you could have like a gender neutral rule where it's kind of like you have to A, be married, B, have children, and C, be paying taxes, more taxes than you use. So, and that could be a good voting rule, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Starship Troopers, it's a really ridiculous movie from I think the 90s, and they're fighting these large bugs, and it's kind of something similar to that. You have to you have to earn the right to be a citizen, right? You don't just get it handed to you on a plate. Similar to the Roman Republic, right? You had different categories of people. It went all the way to the patricians, but yeah, something like that. You're a contributing member of society. You're not a parasite. But we let everyone vote, parasite and contributor alike. I mean, take a look at the taxes in Western countries. They're absolutely abhorrent, to a person. I mean, they always have money for more migrants. They don't have more money for, homeless men, right?
Yeah. Switching gears a bit.
Sure.
I'm curious, what motivated you to start a YouTube channel? Because I actually caught your very first video that you ever made right as you posted it. A day or two after. I just happened to stumble upon your channel, and it was really intriguing. But it was such good quality, everything, the presentation. I genuinely thought that an entire team was behind this channel because it was so well done. Usually you start out and it's not great quality. But anyways, what motivated you to start it and to put so much work into it?
Well, I get the this must be a group channel because no one person could do it, but that's just not true, obviously. I mean, Tara can tell you about that. We've talked about this before. Just motivated by, again, it was the migrant crisis and just being absolutely I've spent a lot of my life in Europe and in several different countries there, and I know that it's a very civilized and special place, and it's very disconcerting to watch it go down in a ball of flames with everyone smiling and clapping as it does. And I kind of felt that I had a particularly different point of view that generally doesn't get aired very often. And I just thought that I would make a few videos with regards to the migrant crisis only, with regards to things that were going on in Germany and also in England. There was, I guess it was just a run-up of things I'd been reading about happening, the thing in Rotherham where you had 1,200, 1,300, I don't know, it was over 1,000 young girls that were sexually molested, and the authorities knew about it, and they did nothing because they feared being called racist. I mean, these kinds of things, when it's interesting being in a non-Western country at the moment. You try to explain these things to non-Western people, and they think that you're making it up or somehow you're on drugs, because no sane person or sane society would do or behave this way, and it's just a fact. It's so out of the ordinary for human societies to be behaving the way they are, that it seems like if somebody has a sane voice, and I like to think I do, maybe I don't. Obviously, I have a lot of detractors that think I'm Hitler reincarnated, but everyone who they disagree with is Hitler.
Or a Jew. Or a Jew.
Oh, or a Jew. Yeah, you're either a Jew or a Hitler. I mean, I'm both. That's the funny part, right? I mean, I'm both. I'm Adolf and I'm Shlomo put together. So, depends on which person dislikes me. So, I mean, sometimes I figure you haven't made it until somebody calls you Hitler or Shlomo, right? So, so the idea is that I guess it was just what motivated me was to put a voice out there that generally doesn't seem to be heard very well. And obviously, I know how to use a computer better than most people. That I can, if I'm just looking at my I guess my YouTube colleagues, it would be. I mean, obviously, I know how to use a computer better than most of them. So that's all.
We are your YouTube colleagues.
Yeah.
But yes, it's true. It's true. It's just fact.
Yeah.
But
it's not a boast, and it's just it's just something I know how to do. It's like a skill like anything else. You just practice, right? That's all it is.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, when you first started, did you realize that there were so many people who agreed with you, that your opinion was so popular, that people would share it?
God, no. I've been a lone candle in the wind for a very long time. Even when I go home and I talk to my friends, my oldest friends, from grammar school, and that I'm still friends with, or from secondary school or all the way into university. I have nobody that would agree with me on anything, so we don't talk politics. So, I mean, I come from an extremely liberal city, mind you, where, you know, if you don't believe in whatever is the, you know, the cause du jour of the far left, then somehow you're a heretic. So, no, I thought I was some sort of mutant, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the internet.
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah, it is a nice thing about the internet. The only people that I do know are always friends that I have that live in, for example, Australia, or they live in Bangkok, or they live in Sweden, or places like that. You know, people that we've lived in the same city together, but everybody's gone home or they've gone to a new city. But the one thing I have noticed is men that live abroad, expats, whether that's in South America or in the Middle East or in East Asia, or even South Asia. I don't know why anyone would live there, though, but in Southeast Asia is fine, not South Asia. But they're generally more, quote unquote, red-pilled than you would meet back in Europe or in North America, just because of experience. And you have to be more worldly if you are going to live in circumstances that are not comfortable and that are completely alien. So you'll find that even if you go down to Hong Kong, funny thing is, whenever I travel, you know, people will watch my Twitter feed and they're like, "Oh, you're in Hong Kong. Let's get together. I know 10 guys that want to hang out." Or I was in Kyoto. That's why I wasn't able to see you guys last week. I kind of screwed up.
Okay.
I was in Kyoto and I had offers in Osaka and a bunch of different places. I wasn't able to because I had such little time. But you know, anywhere I go in any city, if I go to Jakarta, or if I go to Bangkok, or if I go to Shanghai, there's always like, "Hey, Black Pigeon, I know, come on." And usually I like to do that. I'm going to be doing that this Wednesday with a bunch of guys. "Oh, I didn't know you lived in Tokyo. Let's get together." And so, yeah, it's I think men that leave their comfort zone, you know, that live in a world that's very different from what they know, generally will become red-pilled a lot faster than men that don't.
Mm-hmm. And I traveled a lot as well, and actually that was my experience as well, because when I was traveling, I was realizing how awesome Western culture was. You know, all my life I've been told how terrible it was, but everywhere I went, everyone was like, "Oh, you're from England," blah 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 blah. You know, and you realize how awesome it is. So yeah.
Until you see it in like relation to something else, then you have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. If you're living it every day, you know, you don't have a frame of reference. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think my channel, a lot of the political ideas that I have, I've gained by living outside the West rather than inside. A lot of it. You know,
interesting.
You know, so I would say.
Mm-hmm. So why did you choose to start a YouTube channel anonymously? And do you think you'll ever reveal your true identity on the channel eventually?
Well, I didn't mean to do it anonymously. It's just that I thought the visuals of what was going on in there, and then it was just, I find it just, I noticed that most channels just they have a talking head, and you know, the talking head says what they want to say, and then it's finished. Where I kind of felt that a visual storytelling is also something that I hadn't seen anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So
absolutely.
So I just thought I would do it differently from other people, because there's you know, lots of people that make videos. And I mean, there's other guys that do it visually. I mean, there's a guy named V. He kind of does it visually as well. I chat with V once in a while, and I don't know. There's a few others. I just thought to do it that way, and there was no intention to be anonymous. And yeah, probably I'll just go by my real name by summertime, I imagine. I think I'm going to make it a goal. Like if I get I'm up to what, I don't know. So if I get maybe 250,000 subscribers by summertime, I'll do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Something like that. Like if I get 250,000. Sorry.
It's okay. How do you think Trump's doing so far?
I think he's that's a hard question. He's doing what he said he's doing, but he's being petulant, I would say.
What does petulant mean? Sorry.
I would say, well, he's acting as though he's not acting as dignified as he should. He's acting like a fucking kid.
Really?
I would say. A little bit, yes. I mean, the thing is when he doesn't get his way, he goes to Twitter and says whatever it is that he wants to say. I think somebody should take his Twitter away from him. You know, it's not very presidential. I do like the way he isn't so stuffy, and he doesn't seem to conform to the general rules of the office. I like that, but at the same time, he acts. He still gets into arguments with people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who
Yeah.
and I have to admit, I was watching television the other night, not television, but it was on a screen. I was at a place at a bar, and Arnold Schwarzenegger now is basically he's a merchant trying to hawk not online, cell phone games to Japanese people. So this is how far this guy is. I mean, I was saying to my friend, he's got to want money. He's got to be broke because he's dressed up in some military uniform as he's some sort of general for a game for your cell phone. So and Donald Trump is getting into tits and tats with this fucking guy. So yeah, like that.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree that he probably shouldn't do that. But on the other hand, I think the Twitter is so important because he's so often misrepresented by the mainstream media that a lot of times he has to tweet to get exactly his message out, what he actually means. So, but then again, there are pros and cons.
I don't know. I would agree with you on that. I mean, the mainstream media with regards to him is it's just ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. I mean, the way honestly, CNN I read the other day that CNN, it was causing morale to rise, that, they were becoming the basic enemy of the Trump administration, and how that filled them with gusto. And I was just, are you journalists, or what do you work with? Pravda?
Political activists.
Yeah, I mean, what are you? So yeah, I mean, I find that the U.S., not just the U.S., excuse me. I mean, the BBC is just as bad, and Sky News, all of the Channel 4, they're all just as bad. The mainstream media. I mean, that's something else. I mean, I was contacted. I think I know other people that were contacted as well by a journalist in the UK that said they wanted to make a documentary on conservative people, and I said, no, absolutely not. I don't trust you. No. I'm a good person. It's going to be really fair and balanced. Watch it. It was just a complete hit piece, And
yeah, it always is.
Cannot trust these people.
Yeah, I was contacted by the same person.
Yeah, I did.
They will just lie to you. It's like, media always lies.
Yeah,
don't trust them.
Yeah, no, I know you were, because we talked about that, but I didn't want to bring that up in case you didn't.
It's all right. It's okay. I'm pretty open, about most things.
Both of us said no, as I remember.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, smart. Every time I've been approached, I've said no, and then I always read the articles after, and they're always complete hit pieces.
Yeah.
They already knew what they were going to write before they even asked you.
Yeah. One of the ones
they would edit. Go ahead.
Oh, one of the ones I read that did a hit piece on Brittany. I was like, these people are taking this stuff personally. It's like they have a personal vendetta against you.
I know.
They can't just report in a neutral way. They have to put these little sarcastic little hits in there. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they just hate their lives and they hate their jobs, and they know what just scum they are and how they're reviled by society.
I actually think they're envious, because when you look at someone like Brittany and it's like, oh, they have more followers than the journalist, but she has 50,000 times more followers than the journalists. They only have about one.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think they have such an intense hatred for right-wing people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Because we're not.
I don't know, and maybe women too, because they can say, "How can women have supported Trump? How could you?" And especially white women, because so many white women voted for Trump. I think it was over 50%. I mean, I remember the day after the election, all the articles that came out. It's like white women have betrayed their sisterhood. All these weird articles, and they were just demonizing white women all across the board.
Too. I remember that too. Yeah.
And at the same time, Stefan Molyneux was making videos about how women were betraying their country by not voting for Trump. So that really made me annoyed, and I had to keep telling people, white women actually did vote for Trump, so please stop blaming us. Thank you.
I think a lot of that is happening, though, because as countries, for example, the United States, I mean, I think Canada, I read this, Canada's right now, it's about 87% European, and it'll be less than 50% in less than 20 years. The U.S. is I think, as this happens, and if you see it, for example, I just put up a video just a couple hours ago on cultural appropriation, And there was a story, people can watch it if they'd like. It was a story about some model. I can't even remember her name now, as they all talked about her. But she did they had a Vogue shoot, and for the next month's edition, March 2017, and it was actually, the whole cover was diversity. So they had, this is America's new women, but I mean, it has no basis in statistical or demographic fact. I mean, it was just every shade of person you can. I mean, they're all pretty. That's nice. That's fine. Then all of the other magazines, Cosmopolitan included, railed on them because, they were all the same height. There was only one sort of, like, what are they called? Plus big boned? I don't know. There was only one of them. So it still wasn't inclusive enough. And then on the inside, there was this top fashion model, like, I can't remember her name, Charlie, I don't know, whatever. And she did a photo spread in Japan with Japanese inspired clothing, and all over. If you look on the Daily Mail, the Guardian, the New York Times. Yes, yes. And she had to apologize. She had to get on her knees. I'm just a horrible person, and I think the more you see things like this, where people are continually, the identity politics and just the full-on outright attacks continue, and they escalate. I think that's why you saw more white women vote for Trump. I think people are starting to realize that voting, it's an identity politics. The whole societies, as they diversify, they're being tribalized, and it's the tribalization of nation states. I mean, the whole move toward the nation state as they formed, just a few hundred years ago, was the ending of regional tribes. I mean, in the UK, I've been watching a TV show called Vikings, and they had 10 different kings just in southern England, right, in different kingdoms. And
it's a great show.
Yeah, it's a good show, but this was tribalization, and what we're seeing is, we saw over the course of a few hundred years was the formation of a nation state built on a group of people that could share language, culture, ideas, and values, and this is how the UK burst out and basically colonized the world and had their empire that the sun didn't set upon. And now what you're seeing right now is with the import of people that have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And it's not even just the host culture. If you bring in massive amounts of, for example, in Canada, you bring in lots and lots of Sikhs, and then, for example, a lot of Muslims, they despise one another, right? And there are, for example, it doesn't, the groups don't particularly matter. I mean, in the United States, there's problems with the Hispanics coming in and displacing African Americans. So all you're seeing is I think the retribalization of these countries, and I think that's probably has a lot to do with women voting for Trump, because I think even they can see what's what's coming down the pike, and it's not pretty, and it's not going to be peaceful.
Exactly. In a sense, the left is to blame for red pilling them, I think that the left got so extreme and oppressive, and they were never satisfied with everything you would do to try and please them, their diversity quotas, etc. It was never enough. Someone would always disagree or, get mad at you for one reason or another. So I think just ultimately they rejected it.
And now they've seen this crazy reaction from the left as well. I think that's probably solidified a lot of people's position on the right? I mean, you can't go left after you've seen this kind of BS, right?
It's because the left, they're just not used to losing. So they cannot stand it. They haven't lost in so long. In the way that they did during this Trump election. Also, I think the reason things are going a little slower for us is because we haven't won in so long. So we're kind of staggering a bit. The right just is not used to, because it all happened so fast. People who had never spoken up about anything before, suddenly everyone was speaking out in unison. I never thought I'd speak out, but there was something about this movement that made me have to do it. So interesting.
I think there's something to say on that. I think the idea is, and Millennial Woes, he did a video on something similar to this. I've talked about this as well, but he talked about what you just said, that the left has been winning for so long that they just felt it was inevitable. The march toward the future was basically based on Whig history. This is the inevitable outcome. There's no changing. All of this is, and they were stunned first with
Mhm.
Brexit, then with Trump, and I'm wondering what's going to be happening, very soon in the Netherlands, right? I mean,
Oh, right.
I think that everyone's stunned. I think on both sides. The right is stunned because wait a minute, did we just actually win something here?
I
And
know.
the left is like, how is it possible we lost any question about society? We've been winning since the 1960s. So I think everyone's kind of in a fog and kind of stunned with what's happened and what's going on.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, it's really terrifying though to think had Hillary won, how we would be treated now. I mean, I have a feeling it would have gotten so bad that there would have been arrests for saying things against Islamic immigration, stuff like that, because it would have been hate speech, not free speech. That's what they would have called it. But I think it would have gotten I mean, just escalated very, very, very quickly had she won everything.
I think
But
so too. I mean, and also I think that they would have escalated it because they would want violent reaction in order to justify,
mhm,
tightening the screws. And
exactly.
I think they would have gone way overboard rather than done it like you just said in increments. I think it would have just been over the top in order to provoke a reaction that would give them the justification
Yeah.
to start,
Well, they used to do increments, but because the country, at least half, because the country is so divided, it's like two Americas now. Half we're so red pilled, we won't go back to sleep. So incrementally won't work anymore because we know what's going on. So they would have to do it quickly and with force. That's the only
yeah.
way it would work. So yeah.
I think that might be something what they're doing in Germany as well. They're trying to get as
Mhm.
many people in order to, and then it's a liberal democracy in order to basically they've done it in the UK. I mean, Tony Blair. I mean, he supposedly I think it was Jack Straw or one of the members of the cabinet during the Tony Blair when he was prime minister, and they said that they sent out search parties to bring in so many people, and so that they would be able to rub diversity in the noses, rub diversity, rub the right's nose in diversity, and make a country that could never be changed, like basically just absolutely change the population so you could never go back to what it was previously. And I
I
think they're doing that now in Germany as well, and in Europe. They realize that people are waking up, so they're going to try and flood it. They're going to try to flood the country with voters that will keep their agenda going. They've lost the working class because the working class understands on both sides of the Atlantic they've been abandoned by traditional working class, like for example Labor in the UK or the Democrats in the United States, and they understand that they've been thrown under the bus, and this is why they're gravitating toward the Republicans or the Conservatives or things like UKIP or these things in the UK. So I think they understand they've lost their voting base. So what are we going to do? We're just going to import a new one.
Mhm.
And they even have an ad campaign saying, like, we can't go back now. This is the new Sweden, We're just going to
Right.
have to
I've
assimilate
seen
to
that.
them now. They're saying we have to integrate with them.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Mhm.
It's Orwellian in its presentation and its execution.
Mhm.
So, do you think Western civilization stands much chance of surviving the next 500 years? And if you had to put a number on it, what would you say?
Western civilization in its present form? You mean made up by Western people with Western values, or the geographic area of the West?
Well, obviously, I'm not talking about geographic area. I mean, that's...
Okay. I've said this before. I think it's really hard though because we're up against the West has been up against a lot worse adversaries with a lot less behind it, and with much worse odds in history. I mean, they had the Ottoman Empire banging on the door for hundreds and hundreds of years. You had Islamic slavers trolling the Mediterranean all the way up to Ireland, taking white slaves for hundreds of years. You had the Moors in Spain. It took 800 years to expel them. I mean, they were expelled, I think, just a few years before Columbus set sail in 1492 for the New World. The West, it's endured, the Black Death. I mean, just the endless cycles of war between the different kingdoms and the different things. So there's always the West has been this. It was born in a cauldron, and this might be why it was never unified the way the Arabs or the Muslims were, or for example, let's say the Chinese were. They're more like the Japanese, just warring clans that just never stopped, and they were against each other. So I'd like to say we've been up against worse odds, and we never quit. The only difference is we never had so many that were part of a fifth column and within our own societies. And the fifth column is made up now of feminists. It's made up of Islamists. It's made up of Antifa and all other assorted members of people that hate their own society and want nothing more than to see it be destroyed. So it's not only fighting an enemy, an external enemy, it's the internal enemy. And like I've said to other people, Islam is not the problem. Islam is the symptom of the Western society's illness. The West is ill. Islam is just a symptom of that. It's arriving to fill a vacuum that's being created by the illness within the West. I think I can't really give a number to that. I can't even say yes or no because I don't have a crystal ball. I think if, for example, you take away people's comfort, if you have, for example, let's say there's an electromagnetic solar flare that knocks out the global satellite system and people are, rocked back into the 19th century. Yeah. People, they lose their comfort. It'll be really harsh for 20 years, and then people will find an equilibrium. I think a really good example is that hard times, they create strong, hard men. Hard men create good times. Good times create soft men. Soft men create hard times. As a cycle, I think we are definitely living at the end of something right now. What comes out the other side is what is anyone's guess. But we are definitely, without question, living at the end of the current cycle of Western civilization. Just the same as if we were living in Rome at the end of the empire at the time, when the barbarians were being allowed to settle on Roman lands, and the empire was destroyed by essentially immigration and unassimilatable immigrants, which is what destroyed the Roman Empire. And I think we're sitting on that right now. What comes out the other side, I don't know.
What's your biggest complaint about modern Western society? Or like to put it maybe another way, what do you think the like hamartia, or like, is there a fatal flaw? Do you think what do you think that would be in regards to Western society right now that will kind of bring? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that will lead to its downfall, maybe, if not rectified.
Pathological altruism.
Okay.
Being altruistic is a very, very noble quality, but when you're pathological to the point of burning down your own house, this is a serious and fatal flaw within not only individuals but as a collective and as a society. People could point at hedonism. People could point at sloth. People could point at a lot of different things, but the one I would say that is most debilitating toward the West is pathological altruism, because what we're doing right now is we're saying, well, we've got this great society and it's built, and it was, none of us built it. It was just handed to us by our forefathers who did have to build it and did have to struggle, and it was built by the sweat and by the blood of by their hands. And, we're all comfortable. So why don't we just invite anyone in and let's see what happens then? And these people share absolutely none of the same values. They share none of the same history, customs, traditions, language, religion, anything. And it's not working. But we say, no, but it's got to be somehow it's our fault. We did it. If we can just be more accepting, and if we can be more tolerant, then maybe it'll work then. And it just keeps happening. Good examples of that are in Sweden, the UK, Canada. The examples of them are replete across the Western world. It's our fault that this isn't working. It's our fault that they're raping our women. It's our fault that, they feel as though that they, can't get a job. It's our fault that they won't learn Dutch, French, German. It's our fault that they're living in ghettos and selling drugs. It's our fault. Pathological altruism, I would say, would be the fatal flaw of our society at the current time. And that's a hard one to get rid of, because it's built into Christianity, which is the historical moral foundation within which the West works, whether you're Christian or not. So people will say, well, I don't go to church. It doesn't matter. Christianity and the values are inbuilt into the society in which you live, whether you realize it or not. Mm-hmm. And I'm not Christian, by the way, just to let you know.
Yeah, I would also think that a very large problem is the fact that we've been so demoralized. Like, there's no morality, really. I mean, a large portion of our society, the dominant culture at least, it has lost all sense of morality, or what they define as morality is not the traditional definition. It's been kind of turned upside down. So I think that's a huge thing.
Well, that goes back to the vacuum that's been created by the loss of religion in the West, because prior to that, it was the religious standards that set the tone for right think and wrong think, right action and wrong action, good action. It was religion that set that tone. And even if it was a person who wasn't particularly religious, it was within the society what was acceptable and what wasn't acceptable. So I would agree with you, but I mean, since we've lost Christianity, the vacuum of it is multiculturalism, nihilism, and Islam, right? Mm-hmm. So, and this is where morality's gone out the door. I mean, I just read that in Sweden they've basically, a Swedish court, if anyone wants to see, it's on my Twitter feed. The Swedish court is now basically legalizing child marriages between Muslims and their child brides, because to not do so is culturally insensitive. So it doesn't even matter at this point. I mean, what's next? What is next? There is no morality, because nothing is right and nothing is wrong. So I mean, there's no guidelines. So this is societies like this won't last.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That made me actually think of a question. Do you think, because Islam is being imported into the West on such large levels, do you think that the legalization of pedophilia is inevitable, and how far away do you think that is, if so?
Yeah, I do, because Germany is already they already in several countries like the UK, they tacitly accept polygamy, and already in Sweden they tacitly accept pedophilia, with the idea of if you're married, quote unquote, well, a mom marries you. I mean, if you're still a 12-year-old girl, you're still a 12-year-old girl. I mean, you shouldn't be married to a 30-year-old man. But I mean, the problem is it all comes with numbers. The Prophet Muhammad, when he was in his 50s, he married his right-hand man, Abu Bakr, who went on to be the first caliph of the first caliph of Sunni Islam. He married his daughter Aisha when she was 6, and he consummated the marriage when she was 9, according to Islamic tradition, according to accepted hadiths, which are used in Islamic jurisprudence, Sharia. And I think it's just a matter of time and a matter of numbers. And all they'll need is to start creating, using democracy to destroy democracy. So the thing is how long will it take? It just depends on how many people are here, and then also how quickly they'll push, because it's already become a precedent that to deny people their rights, quote unquote, is immoral, because there is no moral certainties. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no evil. Doesn't exist. It's just a point of view. So I mean, pedophilia, I mean, I think it could come on quick, because even the ideas of marriage, I mean, if you look at countries like the United States, where Brittany's from, I mean, the age for marriage up until I think the 1950s was, for a girl, was like maybe 12 or 13, right? And that was at a time when people didn't live very long. Right? So standards change, things will change, but the thing is they're going to use these kind of arguments. So I would say less than 20 years, and and I'm being hopeful. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, for sure. And I say it's definitely going to come to Europe first. I mean, you've got like the city of Birmingham, I've read, in the UK it's closing in on 50% Islam, and it's, I think, the second or the third largest city in the country, right? London is already a majority city, and it's happening like dominoes across the West. So yeah, it's just a matter of time and demographics. Good videos to watch are ones about Brussels, about Belgium. I mean, and neighborhoods like Molenbeek. I mean, I think, these are going to be the first cities that fall. Brussels, Malmo, Stockholm, Birmingham. I mean, you can knock them down like dominoes. So it's like I told you, it's the end of something right now. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And everyone's going to be, he's just so negative and he's so black-pilled. It's not that. It's just having eyes to see and ears to listen. I mean, it's not black-pilled when it's happening in front of you. Because I get that a lot from people saying, "Oh, you're not being positive enough about it." Well, give me something to be positive about.
Yeah, I mean, if you observe what's happening and understand it, you should have enough foresight, I think, to know that that's going to happen. Absolutely.
And not delude yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you
Yeah.
think that? Why have you chosen to live abroad rather than with your fellow Canadians?
Well, Canada for one is
Mhm.
for the most part is just mentally intolerable to live in unless you go to places like on the maritime provinces, Newfoundland, or I come from the West Coast, and it's just socially a very hard place to live. And living abroad, I mean, I found that, I mean, I'm not going to do it forever. Obviously, it's just something that I feel like I need to do with my life at the current time. I found that I've gained more knowledge about who I am, about the world, about the way the world works, living in different places and experiencing different ways of life. So, I mean, the thing is a lot of people then will say, well, why you don't want lots of Islamic people coming to your country? It's a completely different thing. I'm a one man. I'm an expat. I'm not bringing my parents. I'm not bringing my brothers and sisters, my 6 wives, and my grandparents. And then they're going to chain immigrate 1,000 other people in. And then we're all going to set up a cordon in a ghetto somewhere in the city. I mean, this is not what happened. My situation is completely different. And I'm not trying for citizenship. I'm not looking for welfare handouts. It's a very, very different, I live a very different circumstance when people try to I get that in my comment sections of some of my videos, and it's just, get a fucking brain. But living abroad definitely gives you a really different perspective than if you just live in one place. And in the place, for example, where you're from, and that's it. I mean, even when I go home and I see my family or I see my friends, or if I travel to, see my friends in Europe and stuff, I feel that most of the people have a very narrow set of experiences with their lives. And I think that, I think it's an old saying, I don't know who said it's probably really old, but travel enriches you. One of my favorite movies, or not my favorite movies, but one of my favorite books is a series of books called Dune, science fiction. I only read nonfiction except for science fiction. And in the movie version of that, the protagonist is talking to his father, and his father says to him, because they're going to be moving far away from their home, and he says, he's going to miss the place, but change. Something changes within you. It's something that you need as a person, and if you don't have that, you don't grow. And I think that's very real, to be honest. I encourage everybody to spend a year somewhere else, at least, if they have the means and the ability to do so. Absolutely, a year of your life somewhere. And it doesn't have to be that extreme. I mean, if you're from the UK, go live in Malta. They speak English there. It's something different. It's not that difficult to do. You live in the US, go live in the UK for a year. It's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it definitely does give you an appreciation also for your own culture. I would agree with Tara there. Because I only did it like 3 months, but still it was great. In your opinion, what is the best way to go about defeating cultural Marxism?
Well, God, right now it looks like they're just eating their own, I would say,
This is true, yeah.
When I finished my first degree, I was a leftist. I wouldn't call myself as far as cultural Marxist, but you probably could be. I mean, because they want to destroy what, I guess, no, when I finished as a leftist, I wasn't a cultural Marxist. I mean, these people are just awful. But I think they're eating themselves. Like, if you look at the behavior and the actions of the left and what they're working for, they are suicidal. They want to bring everyone down with them. This is what cultural Marxism is. It wants to destroy the West. I mean, look at these, so-called progressives, Antifa. They all work with Islamists. It's the same thing. I think it was during the Russian Revolution. They said, we used, these leftists, while these, these idiots, these useful idiots, and when we were done needing them, we put them up against a wall and shot them. So I mean, the thing is if you've got people like Antifa working with Islamists and thinking that they're going to usher in some sort of new and better utopia. I mean, it's delusion, and I think what you have to do is just keep shining a spotlight on these people. You shine a spotlight on their behaviors, mostly their behaviors, and the stupidity of their ideology, right? So, for example, it's really hard to fight off foreign influences and foreign problems that are infiltrating and creating fifth columns within your society when you have already within your country established traitors, basically working to destroy everything that your society is. But I'd say, stop trying to fight them, just because they're insane, and they're getting worse. They've lost. I mean, if you look at what they're doing with these things, there's the actor from the Transformers, and he's so fucking.
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, and he's got this. They will not divide us, and they will. Yeah. And they sit there chanting in front of a web camera like zombies, and people see this. People see this. And don't waste your time, don't waste your life, don't waste your energy on these people, because they want you dead. They want you dead. They do. And I think basically, if you look at what's happening, they're turning on each other. A very good example of that was when Lady Gaga, who's supposed to be the darling of the left, the darling of the progressives, she didn't make her appearance at halftime in the Super Bowl a matter of political discourse. She just played her songs, danced around in whatever costumes were, and then she was done. And she got crucified by the media for not basically being rebellious. But if you actually think about what it is, she was being rebellious because she wasn't fitting into their mold. And I think you see it in Canada. You've got Black Lives Matter. They're calling Justin, the former substitute drama teacher, part-time ski instructor, Islamists/feminists. They're calling him a racist and a white supremacist. You can't win with these people. So my answer to that would be would just absolutely let them eat themselves and keep shining a light on their, because they're starting to lose it. I think the left, they're losing it, and they're losing the argument, because I think people are actually finally waking up to the utter destructiveness that their philosophy and where it will lead society. And the more you put a spotlight on it, the more for example, Meryl Streep, when she went up against Trump in, I think it was the Academy Awards or the Golden Globes or one of these Hollywood circle jerks that they have. And she got crucified because, she was a big supporter of Roman Polanski, a fucking convicted child raper.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So let him go. Let him keep talking, because every time they do this, the thing is now we have the internet, and it can just, the light can be turned right back on them, right? Don't let up, but don't engage them. I would say just let them destroy themselves, if that makes sense.
I mean, they're losing the argument because they don't really have an argument. They have slogans and insults that don't hold up to the most basic of interrogation. But I think on this whole topic, one of the best videos I've ever seen, it's called "Deception Was My Job" by Yuri Bezmenov. He was a former propagandist for the KGB.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That video, yes. I've watched it several times just because, I watch it to keep refreshing. But yeah, that was life-changing.
It required watching.
Mm-hmm.
It required watching. And the funny part was, I think that was made in maybe the 1980s or the late 70s. And it just completely explains where we are right now as a society.
Exactly.
The foreshadowing is almost uncanny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really confuses me why these people want that stuff, though. It's like, why would you work to create the slum that is communism? I just can't understand it.
Everybody can fail equally, maybe.
Yeah.
And then You know, there's no difference. Everyone fails equally. Everyone is living in abject poverty equally. I mean, I don't know. It's like I told you. I think the ideology is suicidal. To be honest with you, on a civilizational scale too.
Yeah, I mean, would you chalk it up to people not wanting to work hard for what they have, just laziness,
I
that
think
desire
I
for
think it,
communism?
I think most of them you can chalk up to maybe 3 or 4 different categories. One of them is just young people that think that they're rebelling against the system. So they
Right.
think that they're somehow being rebellious and, oh, I'm taking on the man. The next one are just burnouts that are real ideologues, and they start off young and they just never wears off because either they never have kids or they never get a real job, or they are just predisposed, or they have a predilection toward being ideologues. Third, you have your champagne socialists who want to virtue signal. I mean, I just saw a petition that it was in the Indian Times. I guess some guy put up a petition on change.org or one of these for the author Rowling, I think is of Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling.
She's
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling. She's an advocate, an overwhelming advocate for open borders.
Mhm.
No registration, no limit, no end. Just let everybody into the UK. Because she doesn't have to pay for it, and she's separated from it. So there was a petition going on for her, and she has 18 spare rooms. I guess that must have been on one of these, lifestyles of the rich and famous, where they went through her house. She's got 18 empty rooms, and she's got a large plot of land where you could put up lots of tents. And there's one for her to, take in refugees at her home and be financially responsible for them for 8 years instead of the taxpayer. And then she can live with them, right?
Yeah.
The idea was, it was first proposed by Mike Cernovich, actually, and it went viral. So then someone started a petition, but it was a tweet.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious. I saw that in the Times of India or something today. And so, yeah, I would say that's the other groups. You've got your champagne socialists, you've got your burnout ideologues, and you've got your kids. And the thing is the problem is our educational institutions are factories for these people, right? If you take away, I just read recently that Japan in the universities is getting rid of the humanities departments in their universities. They're not going to be having humanities as studies anymore because it doesn't really contribute to anything healthy within the society, because they're looking at what's happening in the West, and it's kind of creeping a little bit up, right? So, but I'll maybe put that in some, if anyone's watching and wants to see, I'll find it and put it in my Twitter feed. But I think the problem is our education system, because most people will grow out of this anti-fa leftist jingoism by the time they hit their late 20s and 30 at the latest. But the problem is they just keep on refreshing their ranks through the indoctrination that they get in these supposed institutions of higher learning. So I think these are the three groups that form this cobble of fucking brain syphilis, and they are the ones that are continually keeping it going. But you cut off the head of higher institution and the brainwashing that goes on in there. I think this whole movement would die out in less than a generation, in less than 10 years.
So maybe that should be our focus. Maybe we should be focusing on getting the government to start backing student loans or something.
I think so, because not everyone's meant to go to university. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Not everyone is meant to be a university student. And then what you have is all of these people coming out of degree mills, and then the value of that degree is basically diminished because everybody else has one, right? Some people, we need people in trades. You need people who work in airlines. You need people who work. Not everyone is meant to have a suit and tie and work in some sort of job in an office. But that's what we've been led to believe for the last 30 years. But I don't think that it's necessarily a good thing.
All right, so we've come to the end of the show. It's been great. Thank you so much, Black Pigeon. Where's the best place for listeners to find more about your work?
I don't know, my YouTube channel, I guess, or I have a website that I don't actually contribute to very often, but a lot of the people that I built it to give people that don't have as large a platform as they'd like to be able to publish things. I mean, I have an editor, and she generally we'll go through everything to see whether or not it's obviously on board. But there's a lot of really interesting information by a whole assortment of people. I think there's almost 200 contributors now. So,
oh, wow. Awesome.
And it grows all the time. So, my stuff, I don't know, my YouTube channel, I guess. And if they want to learn or read other interesting stuff on my website, it's got that, blackpigeonspeaks.com.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you for listening to Virtue of the West. If you'd like to support the running of this show, we both accept donations via our websites. Links are in the description, and you can find Brittany's award-winning book, Hatred Day, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Audible.
And remember to check out Tara's other podcast, The Reality Call Show, for in-depth interviews with scientists, philosophers, and thought leaders. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you again, Black Pigeon.
Thank you, ladies.